Hey Dragon Slayers! Today's video is about physical activity and its importance to reversing insulin resistance. Having thoroughly covered the causes of and the many diseases and disorders that arise from insulin resistance, it's time for the happy ending. There are multiple avenues available for preventing and even reversing it. The goal of this section is to highlight findings that are scientifically supported to improve insulin resistance, while conveying the benefits and, where relevant, the drawbacks. I am a firm believer that changing the way we live can effectively cut our risk of developing insulin resistance and even remove it after we've developed the disorder. I am aware that such a paradigm can be both discouraging and empowering. Making a commitment to change your exercise regime or your diet is not as easy as taking a pill, and the results are not as rapid as those following bariatric surgery. However, by changing the way we live, we can address the fundamental origins of what's occurring in the body to cause insulin resistance in the first place, rather than treat symptoms through drugs or undergo dramatic, often irreversible surgical procedures. Thus, how we live can be both the culprit and the cure for insulin resistance. Of course, as we saw earlier, there are various factors, such as genetics and environmental pollution, over which we have little or no control. But for the overwhelming majority of people, including almost every person that's been watching the channel up to this point, you can control how you live. And even if other insulin resistant factors, like our genes, aren't in our favor, lifestyle is the most important change we can make. The two essential components of lifestyle that encompass the risk of insulin resistance are how we move and what we eat. In layman's terms, diet and exercise. Before you groan at the lack of originality in this statement, and before you put your head in your hands in fear of the perceived discipline and patience that it will require, know that changing your physical activity and the food you eat does not need to be the harrowing experience you might have undergone before. In the context of insulin resistance and the many diseases stemming from it, when it comes to diet and exercise, what you think you may know might be wrong, and what you might have tried before probably wasn't as helpful as you thought. So no more training for a marathon you may never run or walk, and it's time to put away the fat-free foods. Movement matters. Exercise is very helpful for improving insulin resistance. In fact, any kind of physical activity can help combat insulin resistance because it removes glucose from the blood without involving insulin. A bit of review might be helpful. So previously, I told you that insulin opens the doors to escort glucose from the blood to various parts of the body, such as the brain, heart, muscles, and fat tissue. Our bodies rely on insulin to usher glucose from the blood into these tissues and get our levels back to normal. In fact, this clearance process is so vital that the main glucose eaters, our muscles, can get the glucose for themselves. To move our body in any way, we must contract or flex muscles. Interestingly, as muscles contract, they are able to take in glucose from the blood without the need of insulin at all. As an aside, there is a myth that muscles use only glucose for energy. Muscles can indeed use other fuel sources, like fat or ketones, perfectly well. This means that even if a muscle is resistant to insulin, it can still pull glucose from the bloodstream when contracting. Because movement enables this insulin independent process, our blood insulin naturally lowers during and shortly after exercise. In fact, just moving is so helpful that the body becomes more insulin sensitive even in the absence of any weight changes. Other than muscle contractions and the insulin bypass process involved with it, exercise appears to improve insulin sensitivity by easing many of its causes, such as central obesity, oxidative stress, inflammation, and so much more. One study had insulin resistant individuals engage in a moderate intensity walking for 3 months. Even over the course of the relatively brief study, the people lost an average of 2% body fat, which appeared to largely come from visceral fat. A 2% change isn't much at all, yet it was still enough to improve participants' insulin sensitivity. Moreover, another study found that a 3-month exercise intervention reduced markers of inflammation and oxidative stress in the absence of weight loss. Regular and even light exercise can also improve sleep and may reduce markers of stress. So, exercise and weight loss. Let's look at this further. With how much you hear about exercise and body weight, you might expect a near consensus from the research that exercise leads to significant weight loss. Interestingly, decades of data make it clear exercise alone is not an effective intervention for weight loss. Yet this certainly isn't a reason not to exercise. The benefits of exercise may not include weight loss, but do include several others, including stronger muscles and bones and better functioning heart and lungs. Another interesting aspect of exercise is an intervention to improve insulin resistance, is that it works across all ages and all sexes. In one study, just the 16 weeks of regular exercise not only improves strength by almost 50% in men aged 50 to 65, but also increased their insulin sensitivity by over 20%. This was in the absence of any changes to diet. They just started exercising. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. And remember, guys, that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.